So very warm welcome to all of you. And NNIS, our whole team is present at Hangzhou, and we are keeping a very close eye on how India's medal hunt will go at the Asian Games. Without any ado, I'll go straight across to Sandeep, and he is in Hangzhou at the moment. Sandeep, there is a lot of chatter about how big this Asian Games is and how China has pulled out all the stops. A lot of international networks are talking about it. What is your initial feel, and what are your thoughts?
I think, well, the moment you say China, I mean, it's supposedly going to be pulling out all the stops. I mean, we've seen it at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. We have seen it at the Winter Olympics. We are seeing it now. I mean, and this is coming probably a year delayed because that's the time when the pandemic and all were just, easing down. But China decided not to have the Asian Games at that point. But looking at the pure fact that they've had to postpone it and do it a year later, I think it's. I mean, the only thing that comes across, the only word that I can probably say is the moment you see everything out there, whether it's the building, the stadium, and the way they have gone around organizing it, it's like big time. So it's always difficult when it comes to comparing and drawing a parallel with China because it's virtually impossible. So I think the only thing that we can say is that till now, the opening ceremony is just probably an hour away or half an hour away. Maybe it just probably would have just started now. So I think tomorrow you're going to see the entire explosion of almost every event coming around, whether it's the first rounds or whether it's the quarterfinal where India is playing in the volleyball later on, or any of these events. I think you're going to see a hugely big Asian Games come around.
You've seen quite a few Asian Games, and what I want to know from you is, and so would our viewers, that would you say that this is the biggest ever?
So it's very difficult to do a comparison like that because China has hosted an Asian Games in the past. We did the 82. There's been so many others who have come in. But yeah, if you go by scale, if you go by size, if you go by stadium in terms of the length and breadth of each event, if you just plainly go by the way the whole airport has been organized to welcome the teams and all, yes, there is no doubt that this is going to be massive in its scale. I think today's opening ceremony will also see a huge amount of futuristic stuff that's going to be on display. Everybody talks about Hangzhou as the technology city, the city that's been made for the future. I think it reflects very well at this Asian Games itself because wherever you go, it's almost like a very common word is the cashless city. So very alien for a lot of people who come into China or probably from different parts of the world, including from different parts of Asia. But yes, that exactly is the scale we are talking about. And I think you also probably are going to get a peep into something as to how Asian Games could be and maybe run in the future. I'm not saying that this is the scale that always needs to be done, but I think when the world has gone digital and everything is happening not on a small scale, but from very very small areas, I think probably this is going to be one of those last hugely big Asian Games that we are going to see.
And I know the word comparison irritates you, but just to get a sense of the scale, does it stand very nicely with say any Olympic game?
I think where it stands, or rather sits very nicely with the Beijing one for sure. I think Beijing was probably a few notches higher because it's the Olympic Games and it's being held in Beijing, so everything was pulled out. But don't take away anything from the fact that China is hosting this one and they're hosting it in Hangzhou, a city that a lot of people may have read about, but people may not intimately and deeply know everything about the city. So probably this is their chance, their opportunity to showcase it to the world that this is where the Asian Games are going to be held, and to see and look at our city and how we have developed it. But believe me, I mean, I've been going around in the bus, coming to the media centers, going around trying to check out what's happening everywhere. I mean, it's whether it's the buildings or whether it's the bus stops or anything. It's just big. So the scale is massive.
Let's come to another point that when we are talking about the domination of a couple of countries in the Asian Games, then China, Japan, and Korea more or less top the list, and India is making a big surge this time. But there is a bit of criticism from the experts who say that the gap between the top three and the rest is too huge, and there should be a lot more effort done in the near future to try and bridge the gap. Now, two questions to you. One, is such a suggestion not feasible? And second is that, do you really see such a huge gap?
Yeah, the gap is going to be always there, whether you look at the Olympic Games or whether you look at the Asians or you look at the Europeans, you look at the Pan American Games. The gap is always going to be there, and it's almost difficult because you look at the power of China, you look at, in a way, the power of India that now we are slowly showcasing to the world in terms of track and field and other events which are part of the Olympics. A very simple fact, the reason to bring cricket in is also because cricket is also growing. Not only it's already popular in the country, in India at least, but the push across the world is started from the Asian Games and eventually is going to be landing up at the LA Olympics, hopefully, or maybe the Olympics after that. Now, this is how sports actually starts getting wider and larger. But to bridge the gap, I think it's going to be very difficult. You, number one, don't have, I wouldn't say, and probably use the word purchasing power of China. The purchasing power of China, the purchasing power of Japan, and the other countries at the top is huge when compared to the others. Yes, the Middle East is also pulling closely, but the Middle East is not pulling closely in every event like the Chinese can do. I mean, the Middle East is probably is putting a lot of effort into track and field and probably going to pick up medals there. But the gap, I don't think so. I don't think so. It's going to happen for the next 20 years at least, maybe even not for the next 30 years, because everybody has to come onto a level playing field, which I think we all know is virtually impossible. You look at cricket in a sense. I mean, have the playing field or have the competitors come closer? No. I mean, Australia is still Australia, India is still India, England is still right up there. The top three, four are constantly right up there, and I think the same will continue at the Asian Games or even at the Olympic Games. Come what may, you may have a flash in the pan, you may get a Neeraj Chopra, but that doesn't mean that you want to close the gap with China.
Okay, Sandeep, we'll call it a wrap for now, and we'll come back to you for lots more. And there was a compliment to you on our show, which says that only someone like you would look at covering other sports. Otherwise, most sports journalists have given up on everything else and only talk about cricket. That's an interesting topic and in itself, and we'll discuss that later with Sandeep. Thanks for now, Sandeep.